My name's Peter, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. It seems like talking about step 2, the spiritual principle is hope. Hope that we can get better. Hope that we can change our lives. Hope that we can conquer the addiction that's kept us in a hopeless state up till this point in time. What a concept. Here we sit in a pile of trouble. We're maybe looking at drunk driving charges, divorces, debt, job loss, waking up in places that we had no idea that we fell asleep in, wondering where we were, looking at the area code on the telephone to figure out whether we were in the local area code or a different one, and many of the experiences that we've all had in our addiction, calling that possibly insane behavior. And here the real insane thing is that we're hoping that we can learn to drink like normal people. That's insane. And how often do we hear that? People saying, I'm just coming into treatment to see if I can learn how to drink like a normal person, to see if I can change my drinking habits so I can drink and continue to drink and enjoy it. The insane thing to do would be to fire the old higher power, which is drugs and alcohol, and find a more promising power, one that's on your side, one that fights to help you to get better and to change your life. The character defects associated with this step is despair, and I think also maybe denial to a certain extent. We ask in despair, is there a way out? And of course the answer is yes, there is. Step 2 requires that we develop a sense of faith, that there is something bigger and greater than ourselves out there, out in this universe, that is going to help us out of this problem. I've heard over the years from many people who struggle with a higher power or struggle with the God thing, they come up with some pretty weird higher powers, ones that they want to use. I believe that a higher power has to be bigger and greater than you. It has to have a power, and it cannot be something that can be destroyed by man. So an empty bottle doesn't work, a doorknob doesn't work, or another inanimate object won't work as your higher power. If we're really serious about recovery, we have to abandon all the old ways and all our old ideas that kept us in our addiction. We have to do things that we've never done before, and we must explore what a higher power is all about. The word higher means something that is greater, something that is stronger, something that has more knowledge or is more capable than you. The word power means it is something that has energy or ability to act on you or within you to promote your recovery. Let me say here, there is a big difference from seeking help from an empty bottle to seeking help from a group of recovering alcoholics, to having faith that there may be something bigger and greater than you out there. It's a bit of a process. From believing in one person, then maybe believing in a group of people, and then believing in something bigger and greater than yourself. It takes faith to have that happen. So what is faith? Thankfully, the Bible contains a clear definition of faith. In Hebrews 11, verse 1, it says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen." Simply put, the biblical definition of faith is trusting in something you cannot explicitly prove. I like to think of faith as being something that believing in something you can't see and you can't feel is a bit of a different word. You can't see, feel, or touch. We often do feel our higher power, or we often feel a spiritual presence as we're moving through the process. But in the beginning, we can't see it, we can't feel it, and we can't touch it. This definition of faith contains two aspects: intellectual assent and trust. Intellectual assent is believing something to be true. Trust is actually relying on the fact that that something is true. A chair may be used as an illustration for this. The intellectual assent is recognizing that a chair is in fact a chair, and agreeing that it is designed to support a person who sits on it. Trust is actually sitting on that chair and finding out it won't collapse on you. Once you believe in a higher power, you have faith that that higher power can restore you to sanity. It's easier to see the life you've lived before was one of insanity. doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, is truly insane. Our scripture this week talks about grandiose thinking, big thinking. I think of it as our ego getting out of control, thinking we are bigger and better than anyone else, than everything else, and our ego getting out ahead of us. We think of ourselves as the God of our understanding. So we are the God of our understanding when we're in that state, and all of this contributes to the insanity we have in our lives. So what does ego really stand for? What does it really mean? And in my world, I think of it, the EGO, as edging God out. And when we're doing that, when our ego gets out of control and we're edging God out of our life, our lives are also out of control. We become too big for our britches. See, it says that right up there. We're too big for our britches. The scripture that I chose for tonight is Daniel 4, verses 19 to 36. And in the scripture, Daniel is talking about King, and Bill's always happy when I can say this word, Nebuchadnezzar. He was the king of Babylon, and he saw himself as the most powerful ruler on earth at that time. He demanded everyone worship him. Nebuchadnezzar was eventually driven to live in the fields with the animals until he learned that he was not God and that there was a power greater than himself. Once he acknowledged this fact, his sanity returned and his life improved far beyond that he had previously had. Even Nebuchadnezzar came to believe in a power greater than himself, and that returned him to sanity. We need to admit we are suffering from an addiction-induced insanity that causes an obsession and compulsion to use drugs and or to use alcohol. What does that mean? It means using addictive thinking and operates at several different levels. The first level that we find that we get into is called euphoric recall, remembering and exaggerating all the good times around our past drinking and drugging. Remember the great parties and all the wonderful things that happened at those parties. Our brain blocks out all the bad things that happened, the times that we were in trouble with our families, with our jobs, maybe in trouble with the law. We forget all of that. It blocks them out totally. People in early recovery often call this, or the memories of this, as the good old days. And I've done that many times myself, thinking only of the good times and not the bad. Once you progress in recovery and have shared your story a few times, you realize that the good old days maybe weren't quite as good as you thought they were. Once we get beyond the euphoric recall, or when it breaks and you realize that every benefit could have been had, all those good times could have been had without drinking or drugging, things start to change. All the drinking and drugging we did gave us a temporary sense of well-being. It made us feel part of, or made us feel a little less worthless as we had before. It made us feel a bit better about ourselves. The euphoric recall leads us to believe that if we could only learn to drink like normal people, everything would be okay. It leads us to believe that that could happen if we just worked at it. Addiction is the only disease that makes us feel healthy and good while it's actually killing us. The other thing euphoric recall does is lead us to the obsession. We start to think about how good we felt when we used. We tend to exaggerate the memory of the good times. How many of us have thought that it would be great if someone would just invent a drug or a pill of some kind that would allow us to drink like normal people? There is nothing insane about those thoughts or that thought process. We need to come to believe that this addiction-induced insanity could only be removed with some outside help or with the help of a greater power. Becoming a sober person free from our addiction means a restoration of our sanity. In AA, we learn that by working the 12 steps, a restoration is happening in part because addiction and its accompanying insanity are not controlling our lives anymore. The emphasis is not on who or what the power is, but on what the power can do for us. As we mentioned earlier, The group of AA itself certainly qualifies as a power greater than ourselves. Our fellowship is in the millions and is all around the world and is growing every day, as do the spiritual principles contained in the 12 steps. The awareness and the understanding that we can't recover alone and that we need some kind of help is really the lesson at this point in recovery. The spiritual principles are the foundations of this step and all of the steps, and really they're the foundations of how we should be living our life. They are open-mindedness, willingness, faith, trust, and humility. They're worth repeating again. Those principles are open-mindedness, willingness, faith, trust, and humility. It really does matter whether we have any idea of how this power greater than ourselves is going to help, just that we come to believe it is possible that it will help us. As part of our recovery process, it's really helpful to ask and answer important questions pertaining to step 2. Questions about insanity, coming to believe, a power greater than ourselves, restoration to sanity, and spiritual principles. So some of the questions you might want to ask would be, did you make insane decisions as a result of your addictions? Do you have any fears about coming to believe in something greater than yourself? What does "we came to believe" mean to you? What experiences have you heard other recovering addicts share about their process of coming to believe? And have you tried any of them in your recovery? Do you have a problem accepting that there is a power or powers greater than yourself? What evidence do you have a higher power is working in your life? What are some of the things you consider good examples of sanity? That would be a really good one. Brad? Okay. What changes in your thinking and behavior are necessary for your restoration to sanity? Why is having a closed mind harmful to your personal recovery? How are you demonstrating open-mindedness in your life right now? What fears do you have that are getting in the way of your trust? What do you need to do to help let go of the fears? Are you seeking help from your sponsor? Are you going to meetings and reaching out to other recovering addicts? If so, what are the results? To get this step, we need to let go of our old ways of thinking. And really, it's a thinking problem that we have. We need to let the old thinking ideas go. We need to rein in our egos and get a little bit of humility in our lives. We need to reach out to our sponsors, to people in the meeting rooms, to our recovery circle, and find out what and how they believe. Coming to believe is a process for many of us, one we need to keep an open mind. Remember, we said last week we only need enough faith the size of a mustard seed, and this thing will work. If we keep trying each day, we will find our faith growing and growing. We will find examples of it in our daily lives. There are no coincidences in this old world out here. So I'm just going to change course a little bit here and just say on this weekend we are celebrating Family Day. It's time to take a break from the everyday struggles and make an effort to reconnect with our family, with our friends, and the people we look to as being close as family. It's time to go forward with a forgiving heart, go forward with an attitude of gratitude and in a loving and a caring way. Enjoy your day tomorrow with family and friends and reconnect with as many people as you can. Forgive them if they've hurt you somewhere along the line so that you may get better.